Welcome to the Best Known Church Show, where we show you how to 10x your reach with church marketing that will help you increase your impact, make more disciples, and become the cornerstone of your community again. This is for the leaders with an outrageous vision, because anything less would be an inaccurate reflection of our Creator. The ones who have unreasonable.
Well, how about that? What is going on, everybody? We've got a brand new Best Known Church show. And if you're watching live, the audio did something weird at the beginning, so I'm going to have to investigate that. But if you're listening to the recording, obviously I will have it fixed. So welcome to the Best Known Church show. I'm your host, Justin Nava. Oh, you know what? I know what it is. The audio is fine. I actually have I have the stream running in the background. So okay, there we go. So now you're hearing me fine. It was my computer that was giving it to me as an echo. So let's start that again. Welcome to the Best Known Church Show. My name is Justin Nava, founder of Nava Church Marketing. And in this show, we're going to show you how to become better known. Nay, the goal is to be the best known organization in your community. We like to say around here, people should know your church like they know Walmart. Everyone in your town knows where the local Walmart is. They know when it's open and they know what to expect, good or bad, when they go. And in the same way, people should know where your church is. They should know when you're open, and they should know what to expect, hopefully good, when they engage with you, connect with you, visit you, talk to you online, whatever have you. And today I want to address something that I get a lot of questions about, because so many pastors, church leaders, church comms guys and girls come to me and say, how do we fix our social media when no one's paying attention? And my usual go-to answer for social media is, you got to invest. You got to spend money. And I'll explain a little bit of what that causes, why you need to invest in social media. But today I'm actually going to share with you 3 ways that you can promote your church and get new people to discover your church without using social media. And in many ways, without spending any money, because we're not using paid advertising. Now, if you know anything about the show, if you've been listening for some time, you know that we run what we call the Definitive Church Marketing Method. Within that method is a roadmap that we use to help your church go from unknown to best known. And we prefer to do things like run social media ads and run your Google Grant ads. We do all that for you, but in the show here, we're going to talk about something that's totally different, totally off the radar, that not a lot of churches are using, but the ones that do, both our clients and people that just aren't our clients, use it to get great attention on their church, which then gets great attention to the gospel, to the message, to Jesus Christ. So, what my goal for you in becoming the best known church is not to elevate your fame, right? I was talking to my daughter yesterday. She said, I want to be famous. And I said, fame is never the goal. It should be what you're doing, where fame is a byproduct. And a lot of churches will say, we want to make Jesus famous. And along that way, you're going to have to promote your church. We just live in a world where churches are just naturally, and I would almost say historically, since like the first century, are not the go-to resource. There's the mistrust is more likely than trust and authority. And so in order to, quote unquote, win back the hearts of your community, or at least get them paying attention and recognizing you're not like those pastors, you're not like those churches they see on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube, where they're just doing crazy, non-theological, manipulative garbage, you need to make it known that our church is different. We are transformative. We are unique. We are preaching from the Bible. And we love you no matter how you vote, who you are, where you came from, what you need, right? You've got to get that message out there, because other churches are being better, or I should say, are better at getting attention and being worse at being actual representatives of the kingdom. So I don't want your church to be famous. I just want you to be known so you can make Jesus famous. I want to get to the point where I would have coffee with my pastor in Starbucks, and we would just be talking, me and him, or me, him, and someone else that went with us. And someone would walk by, and this older gentleman would just look at pastor and say, hey, You're the pastor of that church down there, right? And you say, yeah. Oh, okay. Here's $20 or here's $50. And you walk off. And of course, the joke we would always say, if that ever happened, did happen more than once, oddly enough. The joke we would always say is, oh, what did that guy just do? What is he trying to atone for, But that's what it was, is that pastor was representing the church, representing our good work. And even the people that didn't care for church, considered themselves non-believers, what have you, they still supported what the church was doing. In fact, on my own social medias, I have people who don't profess to be believers, but they still support what I'm doing because they know the goal is not to make myself famous. The goal is to transform our communities for the gospel in the kingdom, right? So I want to get to that point where you're having coffee and you're interrupted to say, hey, I appreciate what you're doing, Pastor, or standing in line at the grocery store. Hey, tell me about that church. Like, what's the deal? I keep seeing it, right? I keep hearing about this church. That's the goal. And so again, I'm going to give you 3 ways to get people paying attention to your church. This is part of our 3rd phase of the Definitive Church Marketing Method, where we talk about increasing your attention. This is something, what I'm going to share with you today is a great way to get started with your promotion of your church. It doesn't cost any money. It's going to take a lot of time. This is one of the things, just be straight up with you. This is one of the services that we offer our clients, which is getting your church and you, pastor, in front of more people. Because let me start with this little preamble here. People don't know that they don't know your church, okay? People don't know what they don't know, right? You ever talk to someone, you're in counseling with them, and they tell you something and you're like, that's not true. Like, you don't know this? And they said, no, I had no idea. Right? Because people don't know what they don't know. It is our job to educate them, to come alongside them, mentor them, disciple them, whatever it is. And part of that is going to be people that don't know your church exists, just don't know that if God's calling them to a church, that your church is equipped to serve them. If they feel that pull to go to church, they're going to say, what are the churches that I know? Or they're going to say, I've seen churches before. I know I have this pull on my heart, but I'm not doing this. I'm going to fight it because I know there's no church out there that would accept me, care for me, or be in tune or vibe with me, whatever the kids are saying, okay? So you need to make it known that you're here to serve, you're here to walk life together, right? Do faith in a community of believers, whatever you call it. You need to make it known across your city. A billboard can do a little bit of it. A social media presence can do a little bit of it. Your website can do a little bit of it. But if you want to get in front of people that don't know they don't know you, a billboard is only going to get you so much, right? There's only so much you can do with a billboard. You can't tell a story on a billboard, right? You may see some billboards try, but it's not memorable. It's not collective. And also it's stationary. It's only in one place. What I'm going to show you today is how to be everywhere. Again, without needing to spend money on paid advertising or figure out some social media algorithm that's ever constantly changing. Because look, social media only reaches your existing circle and maybe your circle's circle. Meaning if you put a Facebook or Instagram, let's say Instagram, if you put an Instagram post out, unless you're like top 0.1% of content creators, your Instagram post is only going to be seen by the people that follow you. Meaning your Instagram post is only going to be seen by the people that already know you exist. Maybe if they share it, maybe, because many, many small churches, by the way, this is not a show for mega churches, large or even large churches. Most of our clientele cap out at around 300 people. Okay, so we're not talking mega church strategy here. My heart's for the churches between 75 to 150, some below, some higher. Okay, so this is useful for any size church. But most churches around that size, if they post every day for a week, they might get 2 to 3 shares. Because if you have 150 people attending your Sunday service, odds are you've got between 300 and 500 followers on your Facebook profile. Out of those 300 to 500, let's go generous and say 500 followers. Only about 50 people are going to see one of your posts. And out of those 50 people, maybe 1 or 2 a week might share your post. Meaning you're not getting outside of your circle. And if you do, you're just going one level wider. And anyone across town, anyone that's like, you got a Christian following, great. And maybe they're friends with a lot of Christians. But if you got a message for a lost person, chances are Your following is going to share it, and it's not going to be seen by anyone that's lost. I'm not saying that's good. I'm not saying that's bad. It is what it is. So if you have a heart to get your church out in the community and stop being the best known secret, the best kept secret, and you want to be the best known church, you have to do something that no other church is doing. And I will tell you this, maybe less than 1% of churches are doing what I'm about to tell you today. And I'm going to give you 3 things that you can do to get in front of people, new circles, new communities that don't even know they don't know you. And not only that, paid advertising is one thing, right? We do direct marketing, which means when we market to you, we're going to ask you to do something. Okay. We're going to ask you to submit a prayer request. We're going to ask you to sign up for an event. We're going to ask you to come to church. We're going to ask you to come to grow groups, whatever it has. But what I'm about to share with you, we call public relations, which is getting people to talk about you and influencing what they talk about. And a lot of churches think that public relations is just crisis management. Okay. That's like saying church is just Sunday service. Okay. Or missions is just a food pantry. Okay. Yes, a food pantry is part of missions. Yes, Sunday service is part of a local church. It is not the entirety of the thing. And crisis management can be a part of public relations, but it's not the entire thing. Okay. Crisis management PR is basically trying to fix something that went wrong and correct the negative things that people are talking about you. I'm coming at it from a, not progressive, but from a preemptive stance of before anyone can gossip about us or generate the wrong impression, let's share the real impression, the real church, the real pastor. Okay. And so I've got 3 ways to get your church in front of more people. We're not using social media. We are using public relations in this. And you can do these, pastor. Your church leadership team can do them. Or of course, you can talk with us. You can send me a message here on Facebook or just give us a call, 832-861-7654. And we can talk about what it looks like for us to do it for you. And I'm going to talk about 3 platforms that you can be on. Number 1, actually, I'm going to start with number 1, podcasts, because I was talking with a pastor last week who tried broadcasting his message on radio, and people weren't paying attention. And not only that, he surveyed the group of, he's a young church, and he surveyed the young people that he was trying to reach, and they're like, radio? Who uses radio? My daughter would prefer silence in the car versus the radio on. It makes no sense to me, but they just don't like radio. Right? But podcasts are the new radio. For you to get in front of new people that don't know that they don't know you, you need to appear on podcasts that they're already listening to. This is utilizing someone else's platform to get in front of their audience. So you can speak directly to them and share not only about your church, but also share how to overcome some obstacle they might be facing. A couple of examples for you. I have a pastor client who used to be in financing. And so he knows a lot about money management, paying off debt, all that good stuff. Okay. So he likes to go to podcasts where they talk about finances because he can help them by saying, my family got out of $30,000 in debt within 12 months. Here's how we did it. Here's how we can implement it for you, right? And just become valuable and showcase that the church is able to help, the pastor is able to help. You're a real person. And most importantly, you're not doing an advertisement campaign that says, hey, come to church, come to church, come to church. You're saying, hey, let me help you, right? And I have another pastor who their church has the gift of healing, right? And so he's going on to these spiritual healing shows, and he's talking about how Jesus heals, how God heals, versus some of the other metaphysical healing that might be out there that might be confusing people or be taunting people. That's not really biblical healing, right? And so he goes out there, and the goal is not to become some nationwide pastor. The goal is to get in front of the people in his area that's listening to that podcast. Okay. Now we're starting wide and then we're kind of coming in. So, you don't want to just go on national podcasts that are for pastors and Christians if the people you're trying to reach for your church are not other pastors and Christians. If you really want to reach lost people, you've got to go on their shows. My pastor loves golf, so we're trying to put him on golf podcasts. Okay. Got another pastor that we just onboarded who wrote a book on masculinity. And so we're going to work on getting him. We're still onboarding him. We're going to work on getting him on men's shows because I want the men in his area that are listening to that podcast to see, oh, this is like a real church. And they, not only that, when every other church has left me as a man, this church I can go to and be a man and find out what a real man is because I didn't have one growing up, right? Or I don't know how to handle myself. I don't know how to control myself. The Bible says be meek. Bro, I can't do that. I have a temper. No other church is going to help me. They're just going to shun me, right? But the men in that area that listen to that masculinity podcast and hear a pastor speak to their problems, speak to their struggles and say, Jesus has more for you. Come to our church. I'd love to meet you, take you out to a steak lunch and talk about how we can help you overcome these things. That's going to capture attention in a way that the radio just doesn't do anymore. So in order to really take advantage of this, number one, you have to know who your church is equipped to serve, and then what podcasts are they listening to. I prefer, if you're a local church, to start with local podcasts. Now, this will be a little bit tougher if you're not in a major city area, okay? But there are local podcasts if you're in a big enough city, Central Texas podcast, Houston podcast, Chicago podcast, even if you're just in the area, if you're in a suburb of Chicago or a suburb of Milwaukee, whatever. If you can go on that local podcast, because there's probably city food groups, parenting groups, anything of the sort where you can try to get on. But then also, in addition to local, maybe you're a church that's really well equipped to minister to parents, okay? You can do some research, but I prefer just to get you on these shows. You can go on parenting podcasts, okay? If there's a parenting podcast that has wide nationwide viewership, chances are you've probably got 1,000 people in your town that are listening to that podcast. And so while you can minister to and share value and support to a nationwide podcast, what you really want to do is at the end say, you know what, if you're in the Chicago area, Milwaukee area, Houston area, I would love to meet you. I appreciate you having me on, podcast host. And if you're in my area, come check us out on Sundays. You'll see something that you've never seen in a church before. And if I resonated with you, hey, I'd love to meet you, take you out for coffee sometime. I know I like food, right? I like breaking bread. I feel like breaking bread breaks down barriers. It's like, but you don't have to say that, right? Whatever your call to action can be. So that's the way that I like to get into. I mean, podcasts are so intimate. On my last show, Church Media Guys, it's not my last show. I was a co-host on that show with Dave Curley and Church Media Guys. You can go follow them on YouTube. Great show. They go live actually right before I do on Thursdays. We had Paul Colligan, who's like one of the godfathers of podcasts, if not one of the founding podcast fathers. Okay. He said, podcast is the most intimate medium because they got you in their ears. You're speaking directly into their mind and oftentimes undistracted, right? So powerful. Podcasts are so powerful. It is probably the highest barrier to try to get into because everyone wants to be on someone's podcast, and everyone has a podcast doesn't mean it's valuable. Okay. So there are some things you need to look for. Make sure they have a large enough audience, make sure the kind of people your church is equipped to serve. Great example is, if you're a Spanish-speaking church, don't go on a Korean-speaking podcast. I know that's obvious, but think about the way you're equipped to serve people. Go find those people and what they're listening to. And then, you got to get in touch with the podcast. You can't just send one email and say, hey, I'd love to be on your podcast. Look how great I am. You have to do it in a way that provides value to their audience, provides value to them, and puts you in a position to actually speak on authority of something. Okay. Because these guys are getting 100 requests a day. So you really got to work what your workflow is to get these podcast appearances. And you're going to have to apply to about 100 podcasts before you probably book your first one. That's why we have an agency that just does it for you. Okay. So that's podcasting, man, is the new radio for pastors. You can get your message out there to the people that need to hear it and make that invite. And again, we call this be everywhere, the PR that we do, because you have a website, you have Google, you're running ads, and now people have you in their ear. So imagine someone's, we're going to get into, like, for example, the newspaper next. Imagine someone reads about you in the newspaper, reads about you in a magazine, sees you on their favorite show, drives by your church, sees your billboard or your sign or whatever, go traditional, right? Sees your church handing out brown bag lunches in the park, gets a Facebook ad asking for you to pray for them. And then they hear you on another podcast they're listening to. You're everywhere. They can't help but pay attention to you and think, while every other church shut its doors and is just trying to hold on to its own money, this pastor is actually out here trying to help people. How great is that? The number two way that you can get in front of more people, and again, I want to get your church in front of more people. The last one is really people focused. Podcasting is really people focused, right? Your church isn't going to go on a podcast. You are going to go on a podcast. And it doesn't have to be you, pastor. It can be another leadership position if you want, or someone you trust to represent your church. But the next one is really more about your church. And this is what I want to talk about, is how to get your church written about more. Okay. So we hit the audio, which is podcasting. It's like the new radio. Now we can go into actually like reading and writing, being written about. Okay. And there's so many ways now in 2023 and beyond to be written about. For this point here, I want to talk about like actual physical media being written about. Okay. Traditionally, and it still works, it just works in a different way, is press releases. Okay. Now, a lot of churches, when they hear press release, they think, okay, we're doing a VBS coming up. Let's ask the newspaper to run an ad. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, this is usually after you've done something or to generate hype of what you're doing and have it written about in a way that captures attention and draws people in to read the story. Okay. If I say VBS is coming up in 4 weeks, you're invited, that's an advertisement. If I say record number of children coming to this backyard vacation Bible school hosted by local teachers, that's a story. That's a story that I might want to read. Backyard? Whose backyard? They're doing vacation. Man, I remember VBS. Man, Miss Waters used to spank my hand, but they're doing it in the backyard. They got bouncy castle. What is this story? And it's run by local teachers? What is this story? Right? That's a story. Or after the VBS, right? A great example, actually, forget the VBS. Let's talk about discipleship now. I did a discipleship now with a friend in a small town. I won't say with the town because it's that small. Okay. There are 90, I think they said 99 kids in that town, 99 high schoolers in that town. And that weekend, 96 came to the D-Now. And the funny running joke towards the end of the weekend was, man, what are those other 3 kids doing? Like, are they just gaming right now? What are those 3 kids doing? Their friends are all here, right? It's kind of funny, kind of amusing to think about. But that's a story. Afterwards, I would submit a press release that says 96 out of 99 high schoolers in our city showed up to this church this weekend. Man, what's got 96 kids excited? What's literally got 96% of our high schoolers so excited to go to a church on this weekend? What is going on there? Then they want to read the story. Okay? So press releases are not advertisements. They are telling a story. And remember, written media, whether it's the newspaper, local magazine, Chamber of Commerce handout, those little 5-cent or freebie newspapers that are in restaurants. You walk in, there's like the auto trades, there's the classifieds, there's like home builders magazines. Sometimes there's magazines in there that you might want to be on that are just about local interests, right? You can tell those stories in those publications. It doesn't have to just be the newspaper, okay? Now, I'm not a big fan, and typically the kind of clientele that I work with are not big fans of something like this, but we've all read about helicopter Easter egg drops, right? Because they were cool or they failed. I don't know. But that's something that a newspaper says, what is this? Our readers would love to learn about this, right? And they submit a press release, okay? I have a client that's met with the President of the United States. That's worthy of a press release. Local pastor meets with President of the United States to talk about XYZ policy, okay? That's huge. By the way, they're not in DC area. I thought that was pretty cool. So, if something's happening at your church, a story that's worth being told, you can submit a press release to your local publications that you know the people you want to reach are reading, okay? So if you have a local parenting magazine, local newspaper, My town of Spring, Texas, we get a local what's happening quarterly. Man, I wish I had it in front of me right now. Actually, we have a quarterly, almost like newspaper that comes in the mail automatically, and there are stories in there of new restaurants, new food trucks. Of course, there's all the new policy stuff. Here's what your taxes are going to. Here's our average home rate or whatever. But there's a lot of stuff in there that's about new churches coming to the area, new restaurants opening up, new kids places opening up, stories about the schools and teachers. There's a teacher shortage. There's all kinds of stuff in there that this would be a great place for our local churches to publish their stories, right? So if you've got something happening at your church, submitting a press release to these local publications is a great way to get that information out there. And again, I can't stress this enough, Pastor. We are not here the press release is not here to advertise. Okay. If you want to advertise, pay for an advertisement. But a press release is to get a story out there that's going to interest, intrigue, spark curiosity in your community and get them to see that, yes, stuff is happening at this church. God is doing great things at this church. People are paying attention at this church. We're living ever more in a society where unless people are interested in your church, other people may not be interested in it. The number one way right now to get volunteers for social activists, social justice campaigns, or other initiatives like DoSomething.org, the best way to get people involved is to get one of their friends involved. And then their friends will bring 5 other friends because it's a social event. It's not good, it's not bad, it's the way it is, right? So if you can get people talking about you, people will take you more serious when eventually you do run that advertisement. And real quick, there's no special formula, although we have our internal best practices that we know works. There's no special formula to the press release. So just start. Again, it needs to be a story, okay? So start there. What's the story here? What's the problem? What's the obstacle? How did we overcome it? What was the result, right? You can look up storytelling books or articles to figure out how to write a story. What's the catch here, right? Again, 96 out of 99, 96% of high schoolers in our town went to this Discipleship Now. New VBS meets in backyards for a grassroots, whatever it is. New church comes to town and promises to never have a building, right? That'd be our church, something like that. Church crosses, one of our clients, church crosses 1,000 free, church crosses 1,000 free clinic visits. They have a clinic, health clinic on site, because again, it's an impoverished area. So they run a clinic as part of the church missions, and they do about 1,000 people a year, free clinic visits for people that don't have healthcare or don't have access to healthcare. And so that's a great story. Local free clinic crosses 1,000 people served, right? That's a great story. Not come to our health clinic, right? Everyone's saying that. But if you can say, hey, we've had 1,000 people come and we haven't built them a single thing because we're all donor funded or whatever, that's huge, okay? So tell the story, okay? And then submit that. You can go online, find templates and all that stuff. But that's what it is. And again, remember, you can submit it to any local publication, all right? So we hit the audio. That's
I'm not sure I understand.
Weird. My Alexa just went off. Not my Alexa. My Siri on my watch just went off. So we hit audio.
I'm not sure I understand.
She just went off again. So we hit audio with podcasts. We hit written or physical media with press releases. I'm going to talk about digital media or digital reading, which is blogs. Okay. This is a great way because blogs have a dedicated readership and blogs are much more present right now than podcasts. There are many podcasts, but not many of them have a large audience. Whereas blogs have a very dedicated readership to where even if it's a smaller audience, they're going to consume everything that blog puts out, especially on a local level. So this is my favorite secret way to slide your church under the radar. Whereas podcasts, they're going to say, hey, we've got pastor from this church on the show and he's going to talk about this, right? Parenting. Press releases are stories about your church. Local church does this. Local church funds this. Local church sees whatever it is. Okay. But the blogging aspect can be total 100% value because you've got local food blogs, you've got local mommy blogs, local men's groups, local men's blogs, okay, local kids blogs, right? Like, well, I guess that's more parent stuff. What other kind of blogs? Local home ownership blogs. This also kind of counts with like Facebook groups or Nextdoor groups where people are reading stuff online. So that kind of falls under it, but I'm really specifically talking about blogs. And they are so niched down that you can pretty much speak to whatever you're good at. And then at the end say, hey, by the way, this was written by a pastor. So one of our favorite things, I'm just going to give you the secret sauce here. One of our favorite things when we have a new client that we bring on for PR outreach is we ask them, hey, just give us the 5 best restaurants that you love to go to on a Sunday after church. Okay. And then we submit that idea to local food blogs. Okay. In many towns, even a small town will probably have a local food blog. Okay. And it's, it's real simple. 5 best places to have Sunday lunch or Sunday brunch. Okay. They will read that and then they will see your name or your church's name on the byline. And they can't help but think like, what? Why is this pastor writing about local food stuff? Hey, we love to go to lunch after church just like you do. And we know we love the best places because we probably go out the most on Sunday afternoons, good or bad, right? So here's the best places to go. And if you're going to go at 11 because you'll beat us there, right? Everyone knows about the church, the joke, we got to beat the church people. So that's a great way to kind of warm your feet there. Okay. If you've got a youth ministry, kids ministry, right? Find local mommy blogs. Again, don't write 5 reasons to bring your kids to church. That's an ad. Okay. People don't want that. All right. But instead do, 5 fun activities to do with your kids on a rainy day. That's great for the Pacific Northwest because it's raining like half the days there. It's a great article for Houston moms or Houston dads, right? If you're on a coastal town, all right, 5 cheap and fun things to do in Galveston, Texas, or 5 things you have to do when you go to the beach with your family. 5 safety precautions to take that you probably haven't thought about, okay, at the beach, all right? If you got a lake, right, Belton Lake, they got a beach, a lakefront where you can go and it's basically like being at the beach. All right. The 5 best places to swim in Belton Lake, right? That's great. And what that does is it not only provides value for them, but again, at the end, your byline is going to be there. This is written by Pastor Tom, pastor of First Temple. I don't think, or First Belton. That's not the pastor of First Baptist Belton. Unless it is, that's just pure accident. And they say, oh, okay, I've seen their name. They might click through. It's good for your Google ranking because people are writing about your church. That's all good stuff. But you're speaking into the lives of people with what's important to them, and you're just knocking down another obstacle where when they see your billboard, they say, why does that name sound familiar? Oh, yeah, I read that food blog by this church, right? It's kind of the redheaded stepchild of the old church cookbooks, right? Remember those? I love those, man. In fact, if I didn't say no to it so often, I would do like an online service for local church cookbooks. So instead of printing cookbooks that just sit on your shelf forever, like you could just have like an always on food recipe blog for your church. I don't know. I think that's a cool idea. I miss church cookbooks. In fact, if you have a church cookbook, would you send me one? Send me a DM and a picture of it and be like, hey, I got this church cookbook. I love those. I kind of want to collect them. I still have my church's cookbook from the 90s, right? So again, this is more kind of sliding under the radar because again, the podcast host is going to say right off the bat, this is Pastor so-and-so from this church, and he's here to talk about this, right? If you write a press release, you're telling stories about your church. But if you do the blogging, you're going directly into people's pain points, into people's interests, and you're giving them value, and then they usually find out, oh, this is from a pastor. What? Best places to hunt around Killeen, Texas, right? And they're like, oh, I love hunting. They read it. They're like, oh, I know that place. Yeah, I've been there. Oh, I didn't know that place. Who wrote this? A pastor wrote this. Bro, we got to go to their church, right? Our pastor just yells at me for killing animals. This pastor encourages it, right? I don't know a pastor that yells at people for killing animals, but Anyways, so blogging, local blogs. So look at your local blogs. Now, don't kill yourself. Don't bend over backwards trying to write something for a local mommy blog, right? Have the pastor's wife write it, the kid's pastor write it. I don't know. Whoever's like would be a good fit for their readership, write it. Okay. Your local chamber of commerce might have some stuff. Local businesses might have their own blog. All right. So, reach out to them. Okay. I don't really have a reason off the top of my mind why a pastor would need to write a blog for the local roofing company. But if you can make it work, make it work. Because at the very worst case, when people are talking about you online, it's going to help your Google ranking. Now, that's a byproduct. That's a side effect of this. Really, the point is to get in front of people, to show them that you're a normal person. You bleed red just like everyone else, and to get the name of your church in their mind. Okay? Because eventually, as you follow the definitive church marketing method that we have, right, they will see your Facebook ad. They will click through, follow your page. They will then see a Google ad for your church. Maybe visit your church website. They'll see your sign if they ever draw past it. They'll hear you on their podcast. They'll read about you in the local magazine. They might stumble upon a local blog that you follow or see you post something in a local Facebook group. And they're going to be like, this church is everywhere. Where's this church been all my life? Maybe we got to check it out. Maybe it's a sign. I can't tell you how many people like go to church because they're like, oh, God must have been trying to get a hold of me. Absolutely. But but he was absolutely trying to get a hold of you. We just finally found a way to make it more effective. So instead of the church constantly turning their wheels, trying to do something new, but they keep reaching the same people, we just brought the tool that they can use, or that God can use, to reach those people where they are with the right message in the right time and in the right way. Before I jump off here, I want to provide you one more key piece of detail, and that's your call to action. That is the next steps you provide when they hear you on a podcast, when they read about you in the press release, when they read your story in a blog, okay? You typically want to keep your call to action in the same medium that you are appearing on, okay? It's not a hard and fast rule, especially for churches, but if you are on a podcast, your call to action should typically be, hey, we're live on Sundays. We'd love to have you join our live stream, okay? Because you know they're already listening to something, so to get them to listen to something else is not a big obstacle for them to take, okay? Or you could say, hey, we have a podcast. You can listen to it on our website, www.BillandTed'sExcellentChurch.com. Click on the podcast link and you can listen to our messages. Check us out before if you don't want to visit us, that's fine, but at least listen to this message, right? So if they're listening to something, give them something else to listen to as a next step, okay? Just because they listen to you once doesn't mean they're going to come visit you on Sunday. That's a big step, all right? If you're doing a press release, that's usually going to go to your website, okay? It kind of depends on what it is, right? So if you're doing a story on VBS, like VBS is held, this is going to be held in 2 weeks at this church this time, right? That's an obvious call to action. You're talking about kids, you want to invite them to the thing. If it's something after the fact, right? 96% of kids came to this D now, right? Pastor Luke is there every Sunday morning. There's a youth service every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. And all youths are invited from 11 to 18, whatever that is, okay? And if you're on a blog, they're already online. The call to action is usually going to be visit our church at www.ourwebsite.com. Okay. So don't take them from listening to reading. Don't take them from reading to listening. Don't take them from reading to find us on Sunday, right? Guide them down a path that makes sense and follows that media. So maybe in a blog, you take them to your website. So they're going from one website to another, to where then you can nurture them to give them something else to read, right? Download our guide. Download this parenting devotional. And then you can nurture them to make that visit. It needs to be very intentional, okay? In fact, all your marketing needs to be intentional. So you can absolutely get started with PR outreach, pick one probably. Doing all three is going to be a little daunting, especially if you're doing it yourself. So pick one, maybe the one you're good at. If you're good at speaking, if you're good at video, do podcast. If you're good at writing, do blog or a press release, right? If you're extremely local, press releases are great to do, okay? And all of this is just I want to remind you, all of this is just one puzzle piece of everything that your church should be doing. So go to bestknownchecklist.com, bestknownchecklist.com. You listen to the Best Known Church Show, so just go to bestknownchecklist.com. There's a link down below in the description. And you can download our entire checklist to audit how your church is doing. And you might see why your church is the best kept secret, because you're only going to have 1 or 2 boxes checked. And there are 9 or 10 major categories, each one with 5 to 7 things you could be doing inside that category. And you'll get a general idea of where you're at with promoting your church to the people you're called to serve. Okay. And it's not a checklist to make you feel bad about yourself. I want you to see the potential your church has to reach more people, to capture their attention, to be easily discovered, and make sure you're communicating the right message of your church. Because again, if you ask 100 people what a church is, you're going to get 117 different answers. And so you want to make sure you're extremely clear at communicating who your church is. So get all that at bestknownchecklist.com. I appreciate you guys watching today. Wherever you are, like, subscribe, leave a review. Your attention means the world to me. And, I do want to get you to that point. We see it with other churches, and unfortunately, it's not always the best churches, where we see these churches everywhere. We see them on Facebook. We see our friends ragging about them on Facebook. We see clips being taken out of context or maybe showed in context on TikTok. We see articles written about church abuse in the newspaper. These are the churches that are getting attention, and they don't deserve the attention. Your church, if you're doing good, godly work, you need to be getting that attention. And it is our moral obligation to make sure that everyone knows about our church. Not just inviting people to discipleship groups, but to make sure that they know that there's a safe place for them to work out the faith, to get support, to help, to get healing, to find their purpose, to answer that hole in their heart. And to do that, you have to be everywhere. So there is no reason that someone doesn't know about your church. God bless, and I will see you guys. Not next week. I will be at a conference all week, so we're not going to have a show next week. I will be pumping stuff out on the YouTube channel to make sure that there's content coming out. So you can follow us at youtube.com/ the link's down below, Nava Church Marketing. God bless you guys. I will see you here on the show in 2 weeks. You'll find us after the show in the post roll that plays. So you'll have our email, phone number, all that good stuff. God bless.
That's going to do it for today's episode of the Best Known Church Show with Justin Nava. Be sure to subscribe to stay updated on the latest news, strategies, and resources that you need to reach 10x more people and become the best known in your community. To send us a message or leave a voicemail for Justin to be played on a future show, visit thebestknownchurchshow.com. And if you'd like to work with us so you can focus on your ministry, give us a call at 832-861-7654. Until next time, stay outrageous, unreasonable, and relentless.